Welcome to The Wellness Way with me, Philly J. Lay, a layperson's guide to your natural health systems, your very own NHS.
Whoa, hello lovely people, and welcome to another episode of The Wellness Way. This is a continuation from last week's episode, and if you haven't seen that episode with the truly extraordinary Manuel Benages, then I suggest you check that out. I couldn't continue the episode any further. I was quite distraught by the end of it, but there is so much more to this story that I wanted to share with you, and it's really important. I'm still slightly shaking because we filmed the first episode from last week, and now we're going into the second episode. We've had a little bit of a break, but I'm still quite triggered. But I want to keep going, Manuel, because we've got to give the second half of this story. So I just want to say thank you for staying on with me, coming back and doing another episode. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, the first thing I want to address is that you were able, we both had some tears in last week's episode, but you were able pretty much down the line to continue telling the story and frequently having a smile on your face while talking about such tragedy. I can't even say that word. While you were talking about such tragedy. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to give some clips from last week's episode so that you have an idea of what Manuel's been through. So let's play a few clips.
My marriage suffered. My wife left me, took my daughter. I ended up with nothing. I ended up selling drugs. I ended up trying to survive. I couldn't, I was low. I started taking the drugs. I was just a really low point. At this point, I kind of tried fixing everyone else and ended up left in the gutter. I would go out for 7 days, drink for 7 days and take drugs with no sleep, going from door to door, going from wherever I could go just to take more drugs. And the reality, the anxiety of actually coming round from that, the fear of actually what has actually gone on in my life was frightening. So we would do it all over again. I would constantly do that. I had this emotional, unstable borderline disorder, which is due to abandonment, neglect, abuse as a kid. So it's like, yeah, that's me. I know why this, I'm putting a label on this. I tick every box. The pressure that I was under and just the sadness around it all, that me, why me? Why do I have to do this after all that I was going through, that I'd gone through? And I had to take it on myself because I was the fixer. I've always been the fixer, no matter what had happened. I want everyone to be happy. I try to fix everybody and I try mend everybody, no matter, if that was putting myself last or putting pressure on my marriage or whatever that might be. I was just that person, and so I was angry with her. I was angry, and disbelief, because being an alcoholic, living with an alcoholic is tough. A couple of weeks later, I got a call. I was in a garden, and my brother was screaming and said, "Mum's dead. She's on her bed." And I drove up there very quickly, and she was dead on the bed. And I think that was the hardest death I'd ever had to deal with, because finding Dean hanging was really tough. To find anyone, and you think, what it's like to lose somebody. Your brother, who you're supposed to look after and love and everything and protect, he died. And then your mum, who all you wanted is love, and to say that she loved you and proud of you. It's like, and I was never going to get that. She was never going to be able to say that. And I think
Did she ever tell you?
Never, ever. And I think that was the really tough thing for me. I never got to, because I wanted to protect her, because I'd seen how much she'd gone through in her life. And never once blamed her for whatever happened to me, because she had such a tough life. And even looking at it now, she was so unhappy and so sad. And she didn't know how to get out of it. And that's the thing. She didn't, and all she wanted to do is die. She had that much guilt about my brother. She gave up on life, and the only way she could escape it is drinking, and that's all she ever knew. It got to the point where I was ringing every day. I was begging, pleading for help. I was suicidal again. I was putting antidepressants, but then I was taking drugs and alcohol, because the antidepressants would take the edge off the depression, and so I take more drugs. It was it was just a chaotic spiral of destruction. And then that's where I reached out and got some help. Turning point. I need some help.
So Manuel, looking back at that and seeing your reaction, and there were some things you actually hadn't thought about before,
Yeah.
and we're going to come to your therapy later, but you know, the fact that you were trying to basically relive what your mum did. But looking at that, do you think that you went through so much that you were desensitized to your life? And I'm going to ask that question because I remember when I was training as an EFT practitioner, and my mentor and coach, Penny Kroll, gives a story that she had somebody come to see her who had a big lump on her face. And this woman came in and she said, oh my God. And she was quite a well-spoken woman and quite, posh, kind of. And she said, I've got this lump on my face and I absolutely hate it. And somebody said that tapping would get rid of it. And I need to get rid of this. And so, Penny says, let's start tapping. And it transpires quite quickly. They tap through this lump. And then we do something called matrix reimprint, which I haven't had on the show yet because you need a practitioner to do it. And I'm trying to give people as many free resources as I can, but I am covering it with Carl Dawson, hopefully quite soon. Anyway, with matrix reimprint, you go back to a memory. And this woman went back to a memory of walking into her mother's bedroom because her mum hadn't got up to get her to school, and finding her mother's decapitated body. And this woman was sitting there worried about a lump on her face and was able to tap through and talk about this incident that had happened in her life with no emotion. And she went on to work with Penny for quite a long time, and they did take away the layers of the onion and get rid of the lump and the emotions. But Penny went on a bit of a mission to try and find out why she didn't have emotion, and discovered it was because she was almost numb. Well, she was numb to the process because she'd been in and out of therapy for all of her childhood and her adult life. And she had spoken about it so many times that it kind of doesn't register what's happened. It's almost as if you're talking about somebody else's life. Looking back at last week's episode, is that how it felt for you?
Yeah, I've spoke about it quite often, and there's a lot to talk about. So each individual bit, I have cried so much. I have gone so deep with therapy, so deep, to the core of, being unloved, the deaths, the guilt, the shame, all of the elements of it is within depth. I think, for 7 or 8 years, I've gone to town with therapy and all other different elements of things to, try to come to terms with it, try to deal with the trauma. And there has been times I've spoke about on my social media, I've talked about so much to people, to other elements. I've done talks, and it does sound, I have been numb to it. I think now it's been quite a number of years since I've actually really spoken about it. But I think as you've probably seen from last week's episode, reliving it, it's not about the circumstances. It's actually, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, looking at it from a boy, which that boy was me. And that's the recent work that I've been doing, is to bring that boy into bringing it into who he is today. But that boy was really vulnerable and was taken advantage of. So the grief that I've dealt with is really being about everybody else. And it was never really about me.
Your grief.
My grief. And I think that's, going into that, I have empathy for that boy. I have so much empathy and love that I want to give him. And that's why I cry. And that's why and seeing that little boy for what he was. And that's why I can get a little boy and can get emotional. And, even up to the point of where, as an adult, adult and 30 years old, and I was still a little boy at that heart. I was still wanting to be loved. I was still searching and pleading and begging for that acceptance. And I think that's what I've done all my life. And only recently, you know, through recent relationships and other elements have come out that I've gone, oh shit, I thought I dealt with this. And I'm back to this vulnerable part of where it still can kind of come up for me. And it's good. It's good that I'm able to cry. And that's the thing, and being able to get emotional, because I used to be embarrassed about being emotional about it or looking at that, because I'd been so numb to it over the years. Like, that was just normal. That was just what happened. That's just how I lived my life. I was bounced from all that resilience, from all of that stuff. You can imagine, it just gets to a thing like when there's a death, all right, you know, it's a death. I've been through that much. As sad as it is, as sad as it's been, but, you know, it's actually coming to be a human, to have been able to connect to that emotion now and to that time. I think it would be very strange, for what I know now and what I've dealt with, if I wasn't to get upset about it.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the difference. I think there might be people watching this, and I've done it myself, going, oh well, you know, you still obviously haven't dealt with so much if you're getting emotional. It's a different kind of emotion that we're dealing with now. It's not about the event, because God knows I've had that much therapy and that much stuff that I've talked about this and gone through detachment, emotional kind of elements, and all different types of therapy to work on these areas and deaths and grief, which I've dealt with, but things have still happened. And, you know, and looking from an empathy and an adult, and I'm a 43-year-old dad and father, and run a charity and do all these things.
And we're going to come to the charity very shortly.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt this podcast. The Wellness Way has got a brand new interactive ebook out. I've created a beginner's guide to your natural health systems to help you navigate through the jungle of natural health. A banquet of knowledge wrapped up in a simple ebook, featuring some of my top guests from the podcast. As an added bonus, I've even thrown in my meditation album, The Wellness Awakening, From Past Lives to Passing. Head over to my webpage, phillyjlay.com, to grab your copy now. And while you're there, why don't you sign up for my newsletter? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast so we can continue to get this information out. Remember, the doctor of your future is you.
We finished the last episode, and you were going through the yellow pages looking for help. So that was back in the day. Go through the yellow pages. And did you feel compounded shame because you were male asking for help? Did that ever cross your mind? Because, you know, we live in a world where, you know, there's been a lot of talk over the last few years about the differences between men and women, and and the similarities, and people not feeling comfortable with their sex, and, you know, all of this stuff comes into play. Did you feel, oh my God, I've got to shut this down because I'm a man? You were 30 years old. Do I shut this down? Do I bury it?
I think it wasn't because I was a man. It was because of where I was from, the background I was from.
Interesting.
I wouldn't say I ever thought, well, I'm a man, I'm supposed to, you know, handle this stuff. It was where I came from, the family I came from, the mother, brothers and sisters didn't talk about this stuff. No one talked. Everything was kept within the circle. Nobody spoke out.
And do you think that's a class thing? Because I know you said you were very poor. Do you think it was a class thing, or do you think it was a cultural?
Cultural. I think it was a private thing. I think it was kind of, we come from here, and we stick together. We do this. We don't talk about what goes on within our household, so to speak, within our family, because, you know, we're protected by this this name, this you know, this, what to call it, reputation.
Yeah.
Reputation. We've got this reputation, and I had a reputation, even though I wasn't the same, you know. We didn't speak about it. And friendships, my friendship circles as well. People went out to the pub, and people went out and talked about lad things and doing all, you know, drinking and fun stuff. No one talked about depression. No one talked about definitely anything kind of sexual kind of misconduct or being abused.
Well, it takes a very extraordinarily
Yeah.
brave person, actually, to talk about that. And there are very few that I know. There's you, there's Emma Jane Taylor, who's coming on the show. Is it one of the Gucci family that's just come out about her father? Is it Gucci?
I'm not sure.
Last year, but you know, there's a couple of people that have spoken about
Yeah,
it.
I've just seen Patrice Evera. He's just spoke up about it as well, which is really good. I love
As a footballer,
yeah. I was really proud. I admired that straight away. I sent that around because I just think, from people like that and people like myself and others that are able to talk about it, I think there's such a shame and stigma attached to it because we want to fit in, and if we've been, something's happened to us and we've been tampered with, is that shame of I was a boy.
Well, Emma Jane Taylor actually has a charity called Not My Shame, and a T-shirt emblazoned with Not My Shame, and it's not. You were a child. It is not your shame. It is the shame of the adult that perpetrated it. It is that simple. Let's move on.
Yeah.
I want to come to the good part of how you turned this around. So, are you ready for this one? Start us.
Yeah. So, it does get good. I had an accident. We won't go into that.
It does get good. I had an accident.
It was an accident. I had an accident where I was kind of lost control. I was out in Ibiza, and it was a big turning point of actually realization that this is me. This is me that's creating this. It's not actually the deaths. It's not actually, suicide. It's not all these things. This is me. This is me not being able to navigate out of it. This is me not being able to think anything different. This is me who keeps going back to the same place at that rock bottom when incidents happen. So it's not the incident, it's how I'm dealing with it. How I'm dealing with it is not being able to understand it. Going to distractions like drink and drugs and gambling and whatever else that might look like to distract, and that's creating the shame. That's creating all these other elements, because remember, I've had all this therapy now, so I should know better.
And when you talk about therapy, you're talking about speaking therapy.
I'm talking therapy, trauma therapy, EDMR. I've had every kind of, about 19 different types of therapy to help me to deal with my traumas and past. So it's taking a lot of it's really based around taking the emotion around the event, the trauma, and being able to kind of put that to where the events happened, but I'm able to move on from it without it triggering a response to drink, drugs, emotionally imbalanced, whatever that might be, that where I would be, depression or whatever that might be. So I'm able to kind of move forward from that. And then I obviously so I did all the therapy, and I started to take the law into my own hands and the responsibility, and I really wanted to change. I just didn't know how to change, but actually having the therapy, it really gave me a kick up the bum, a really good understanding of myself, a really good understanding of what was going on in my head, why I was doing these things. It really gave me an understanding of all the grief, the death, the guilt, the shame. I kind of let that go, and I was able to kind of move forward, look at myself in the mirror and start to kind of, like that person that I was looking at, because I was starting to understand that person, and that was it. And then I started to explore, fitness and nutrition. I started to explore about the mind, getting into, I know that you interviewed a brilliant idol of mine, and I don't have many, but Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza. Was looking into all of that, the mind stuff and the power of it and what we can achieve, and I was obsessed. And all these podcasts, I never even watched a podcast before this. I never did anything that didn't involve a drink or drugs or going to a pub or being in a negative environment. I started to take myself away from that. I started to make decisions to, I made a final decision in 2018, the end of 2018, to kind of, that is it. What is it that is distracting me from all this? Well, it was the drink, the drugs, the gambling, all of these things. I stopped that very day. I made a pact to myself to never do these things and to start really going into myself. So from this negative learnt behaviour, this life that I'd had, 38 years of it, I'm going to leave that now. I'm ready to make that step into this unknown health, goodness and nice people and positive thinking and all of this kind of stuff. And so that I made that leap of faith, and I left the drink and the drugs and all of that negative behind, and I kind of ran away from it and dropped all of that, my old friendship groups, my old life, and I was on my own, and I started to talk about it on social media, and everyone thought I was having this Britney Spears moment, that I'd lost the plot, and I'm like, what is he doing? He's having social media suicide. He's talking about his mental health. He's talking about all this stuff, but I knew what I was doing. I was kind of tearing all the layers off. I felt liberated by going, this is me, this is what I really am, this is what's really happened. And people were just, from this guy who was ducking and diving, trying to survive in life and doing anything he possibly could to get from one place to the other, or house party to another, or whatever that might have looked like. I've
drugged into another.
Yeah, I've drugged into another. I've gone all serious. I'm trying to put this positive spin out there. Not really know what I was talking about at the time. I thought I knew it all. I'd watched a few podcasts. I'd made that decision to change my life.
The thing is, when you come across the work of people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, it is a complete and utter revelation as to how we can just reprogram the mind.
Definitely. And that's where I was. I was reprogramming my mind. I was doing all this work constantly, and I just wanted to share that. I wanted to share to others, going, you can feel differently. You can change. This is how I'm feeling different, and I'm already kind of feeling the benefits of, not being around that, and actually coming away from the drink and drugs. I'm able to think clearer. I've had all this therapy. I've had all this weight taken off of me of dealing with the grief, and I'm running. I'm starting to go to the gym differently. I'm starting to eat healthily, and I'm sharing this journey of progress within my social media, and I remember putting it out there and saying, who wants to follow me on this new journey of health and healthy quotes and healthy eating and blah, 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 blah. And I started blogging, and that was it. That was the turning point going into 2019. And I shared that journey. And then within a year of it, I started doing this support group where I was going up these steps, call them scamming steps, where it's notoriously known for people jumping off a bridge and taking their lives. But actually, on the other side of it, there's a dam where there's stairs that go up, and there's 500 steps, just short of 500 steps, and they're really difficult. Rugby players and boxers go there to train. So I remember doing this for the first time, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I felt sick, and ill, and I remember leaving that day. And a friend of mine's son committed suicide. He was 19 years old. And I just started on this journey to change my life. So when I remember going home, I was distraught. I was like, gosh, what can I do? What can I do about it? What can I do to make a difference? For everything that I knew, everything that I've been through, I can make a difference. I can share my story and make a difference. So, right, I'm going to set a group up, a walking group, to go back to these steps, because it's a challenge. It was difficult, and that's life, isn't it? Life's difficult. Yeah. But once you get through that, and once you get up to the top, you can look back and go, wow, I've just done that. And you can feel better for the psychological, the physical, all them elements. And it was a real kind of a thing. I was like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to invite other people to come and join me do these steps. And then I originally reached out to men as a group, because I'm around many groups, many men groups that talk, charities, and I think it's amazing to talk. But for me, I've talked about it, but it's about the action, the change, and not many people go to a talking group and get that help by support, by professionals, by understanding what's going on up there and understanding what's going on here. They're going to talk, but then it's the next step. What happens then? What happens when we stop talking?
And many people don't get any help at all.
No.
We've spoken about the fact that you were on a national health wait list for 3 years, suicidal. So you took actions. You brought people together.
That's what it was about, yeah.
And you took actions.
Complete action, and that's what it was about. So that's where the ball started rolling. So I started to take action by getting people out on a Sunday. It's an alternative. It's your choice. That's what it's all about. It's about your choices, about people's choice, and it was my choice to change my life, and it was my choice to kind of understand what had gone on. And once I knew what to do, once I started to knew what to do, I could change everything. So started on this group every Sunday. 9 o'clock, join me. And people started to come, and it was just men at the start, and we was running in the snow, cold and wind, putting it all over social media. We went for a coffee after, talked about it then. We'd done something first, we'd done something physical, we'd woke up, we'd made a decision to challenge ourselves, and then we started to feel better because we've done that. We've done that first thing on a Sunday morning. Didn't necessarily want to get out of bed, but we didn't necessarily want to climb them steps, but we did it, and we felt
and
better
if you go for the coffee first, you're certainly not climbing.
Yeah,
up the stairs.
exactly.
Actually,
We're just going to talk about doing it maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Should we go and watch the football now?
Yeah, and it never exactly. So that was the philosophy behind it, and then actually, women started to reach out to me. Kids, family members that had been in domestic violent relationships, that had lost people to suicide, all of these elements. It was like, I can't just do this for men. You know, I can't not turn anyone away. Everyone's welcome. So I was right. And then we had, you know, family members, kids joining us.
Because you were first known as Manuel, as in Manwell, weren't you? Manuel, because your target audience was men.
Yeah.
But then it just grew and grew.
It grew into kind of a community. So within 1 year, our first anniversary, we had 200 people from all around the country joining us every week at them steps from all over. It was a phenomenon. Everyone was just turning up, and you didn't know who was coming. People messaging, and can we join? And people coming from Scotland. And we had so many amazing stories from people that had never left the bedroom. Young, you know, kids that was overweight with mental illness, you know, being bullied, locked away in the bedroom. Heard my story, seen the steps, wanted to come down and trial it, and came. We got everybody up them steps, no matter who it was. People with amputees. There was people at 79 years old. Anybody.
Blimey.
Oh, it was crazy. Honestly, it was crazy. It was like this big phenomenon, and everyone was coming, and everyone was feeling amazing. We got this support hub. I took on a lease where people could go back for a coffee and a sandwich, and then we added another day, Wellness Wednesdays, which would be midweek, and a walk and talk, and just got people out talking about stuff. And then that's where I was like, right, okay, this is fantastic, this is great, but it's not really changing everyone's life. It's getting everybody out, but there's people that need more, you know, they need more guidance. They need, how do they navigate out of this? Yeah, this is helping people's mental health. This is getting people out. This is getting people talking. This is getting people doing something physical. But actually, how did I change my life? I changed my life with a lot of bloody therapy. I changed my life with nutrition and exercise, being able to understand my body and what was going on in my head. I also changed it by having the tools to navigate out of situations when, you know, a death arised, or when something wasn't going my way, or, you know, I was feeling triggered towards something. What was going on up there, how I could handle it, how I could navigate out of that without turning to drink, to drugs, to being angry, to feeling depressed, and to be able to understand that. I learned all of that. And how could I put that into a program? How could I put that to somebody, to give to somebody? So I had this bright idea that I was going to create a program, and it was going to be like an alternative to an antidepressant. Not that I have anything wrong with antidepressants. They serve a purpose to a certain point for certain situations, but there's got to be a point where there's got to be a point after that. There's got to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and I wanted to create that light at the end of the tunnel. I wanted to create someone hope.
Yeah, I would actually say, though, with antidepressants that a number of antidepressants do, one of the side effects on the packet is suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
it's crazy. I've got to be very careful what I say in regards to it, because over the years, obviously I run a mental health charity and things have their place, but when people are ready to be able to make that step, to jump out of that comfort zone, then this is what I wanted to kind of create as an alternative to that, so which is the 8-week program.
It's a very comprehensive program that you have put together. Before we start it, actually, I want you to say how you funded doing this.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Right. So, yeah, I had this idea, and as anybody that's watching this and following me now, I'm a little bit out there, and I don't give up on things. And I had this idea and put this idea together. If I brought a program together and put it together, this is going to really help people, but I needed to fund it. I need to bring the best professionals in. I need to bring a therapist. I need to bring nutritionists. I need to bring a trainer, teacher, to educate around all of this stuff. So I did my research, and I found the best people, and actually found my therapist who helped me throughout all of my trauma. So there was no one better to do it than this guy, and I convinced him. Actually, he didn't need much convincing. He was in straight away. I actually rang him to find a therapist for me if he knew anybody, and obviously he was up for the job.
Pick me.
It was just so it couldn't have been anyone better. And then I've kind of put this together, but I had to fund it. I had to pay these people and to put this program together, this idea that I had, this pilot. But everybody I explained the pilot to, that's a great idea. You know, this hasn't been done. No, why ain't anybody doing this? Yeah, you might be able to go to therapy. You might be able to go to a gym there. You might be able to go and train somewhere. But actually putting all of these things together and all of these things that Bruce Lipton and, you know, all of these amazing people, all these papers, that this science around all this stuff, putting all that together, the NLP, the therapy, all of that stuff, which is really beneficial, that changes people's lives, the things that I knew about, but I'm not doing it from me. I'm going to pick all this best material. I'm going to pick the best professionals, and which I did. And then we had to fund it. So that was how am I going to fund this? So I just put myself out there physically, mentally put myself out there with the most insane challenges to raise money. And it was, one of them was climbing the steps that we'd do the group. It was 500 steps, and it was coming into a lockdown actually. And it was like, we need for a program. And I asked my person I was working with at that point to find the research of how many people committed suicide. And I know a lot of men I know a lot of people focus on men. It's a big thing, stigma around men. And a lot of people are focusing on these 84 men, you know, a week that commit suicide. But actually, like, my group, my charity, is for everybody. The foundation's for everybody, children, everybody. So I'm not going to just run for men that 84 times. I thought, if I'm going to do the steps, whatever times it is, people commit suicide a week.
Yeah.
So it was 105 people commit suicide at that time a week. And I was like, wow. So I did my calculations, and it's 80 miles. It was Mount Everest twice. And it was all up concrete steps, and
so there's no tolerance. There's no spring in the ground.
There's no spring in the ground. It was just, right, this is what we're gonna have to do. This is what I'm gonna have to do. I've said it. I'm gonna commit to it, and no matter whatever I'm gonna do, I'm gonna finish that, no matter how long it takes. And then it didn't start off good. It was blitzing. It was snowing. It was ice. All that kind of. The ground had frozen over, so it was really difficult. So it was taking twice as long as I kind of imagined it was going to do. When you kind of think of something and actually putting it into practice, completely different. And then, I found it really challenging. And actually, I told the press, I told everyone about this, that I was going to do that. Everyone thought it was bonkers. People messaging me when I started it, going, just give up. That's impossible. You know, I know a lot of people have attempted to do them once and really struggled with them. So doing it 105 times was just insane. And even looking back at it, it was insane. So, but I was thinking, look, what would create the biggest, disbelief? It's disbelief, and what creates something is it can't be done. No one can do that. And actually somebody battling that or taking it, how I approached it mentally was just put my life there. And I really struggled. And if anyone wants to ever see that footage of it, it's on my social media. There's some bits there. I break down mentally over the time. It was really tough and challenging.
And how long did it take?
It took me 43 hours. The first 10 miles, I broke and slid and torn all my ligaments in my foot, broke the bottom end of my foot. So I had to wear like slippers. When I was doing it, there was the sore was around, not even 5 mil thick.
You carried on?
I carried on another 70 miles, another 30 hours. And and it was the most grueling, toughest thing I think I've ever done. But not as, that was the physical element. And I remember I was getting through and it was coming to daylight. So it was going into the second day. And the sun was coming up, and I remember seeing the steps, and I broke down, crying my eyes out, thinking, if only there was less lives lost a week. And that's what broke my heart, is that, you know, I'm walking these 105 times, but what about them people losing that life? And there's 105 and I'm crying and struggling about climbing 105 steps, laps of the steps. And these people are taking their lives because they think they've got nowhere else to go. They think they can't go forward. If I can show, people think this is insane, but actually it's not. It's one foot in front of the other, step by step, bit by bit, hour by hour, day by day. And guess what? I got through it. 43 hours later, I was sat on my couch in tears and broken, but I was sat there and I repaired and I got through that. I got through that really tough time, and I wanted to show that people could get through whatever they were going through. And I'd gone through so much in my life, and I put that to there. And actually, it was nothing. It was the physical. It was I was delusional. I was no sleep. I was losing my mind. I was physically beaten and broken. I was mentally broken. But actually, I knew if I just got to that point, I was going to be all right. And I just needed to get to that point. And that's the message I shown with that. But the other message is that we raised £20,000. And we helped so many people within that time, and people that was desperate, that was feeling suicidal. Actually, halfway through that point, at midnight, I was doing lives, and people was going to take their lives and turning up to do a lap with me, saying, thanking me because what I was doing, because they didn't think they had anywhere to go, and there was turning up. There was people turning up with food. There was the press came. It was crazy, and everyone was just willing me to carry on after I got to a certain point. After 60 laps, they think this crazy guy's gonna do it. He actually might even do it. So I had all the support. I think there was at one point it was like 5,000 people on a live, all going,
oh my God,
willingness to go on, and you can do it. It was absolutely crazy.
So you weren't just walking up and down the steps, you were also on a live, so presumably you were talking to the people.
I was going, well, every now and then I was able to kind of get onto it, but I was walking, it was like a loop, so it was like a mile loop, so it was 105 times, but it was a loop, and then it was at these 500 steps. I think it's about 60,000 steps or something, actual steps going. It was absolutely crazy.
Oh my God, I just can't believe this. But you raised £20,000.
Yeah.
And you started your charity.
Yeah, started the charity. Well, it was a year from that then, and I was able to.
And your charity, by the way, is Athletic
Minds Foundation. Yeah, and yeah, I just raised all the money, awareness, crazy with my social media, putting it out everywhere, bringing the staff in, paying for the staff, finding money, fundraising, bringing anything I possibly could do for the first couple of years. I was picking people up from the houses that couldn't make it, taking them back. I even took 100 people up Mount Snowdon once. It was the worst thing I've ever done, and put myself through it. But I would go to any depth to get people to believe in themselves, to be able to achieve things that they couldn't ever think they could do. Obviously to raise money, to put into the programs, to pay the professionals to work, and to be able to do their magic, and to put into these programs, which ended up, where we are today.
Oh my God, it's a phenomenal story, and this is the story I wanted to share with you guys, because this is just extraordinary. And I know we had to go through a little bit of trauma last week to get here, but you need to have and understand that trauma to understand how you could possibly get to this. And so now I want you to talk us through the programme. Number one, what's on number one slot on the programme?
So therapy is really important. It was a really important part of my life, to understand what's gone on in my life, to be able to deal with the trauma, the emotion, to be able to let go of that detachment of that emotion, all of the things, the guilt, the grief, all of them things that held me back all my life, and I didn't understand it. I wanted to add that big element. We used lots of different types of therapy.
I was going to say, you're not just doing talk therapy
No.
here. No. How many different types of therapy?
There's around 19 different types of therapy we use, or we can use, depending on that person. So that you might go into a program, and I know this from the thousands of the people that have come to us and going, therapy's never worked for me. I was on a waiting list for this long, or I tried this and I've tried that. And why would it be different to yours? Actually, you might need this, and that. We need to get to the root of it, not the actual problem. We need to look at where it comes from and actually go back to the core, or the root of everything. And that's what we do, using lots of different types depending on what that person's gone through.
Yeah, because everybody, I say it a lot on the show, everybody is a study of one. Everybody has got different trauma. Yeah. Everybody reacts to different therapy. Talk therapy isn't for anybody. I'm a tapper. That's what works for me. I'm a breathwork coach. I love doing breathwork. It calms me down. It makes me feel better. I love meditating. Fucking hated it until I discovered Soma. I thought it was as boring as hell. But then, the music and the dance and the breath work with the meditation was the stairwell to the subconscious mind. So you just have to find what works for you. And I know you're a breathwork coach as well. So you use breathwork as a form of therapy?
Do lots of stuff. So everything that I've tried to get well, to get better, to be able to live in this world and to be able to live a happier life. I've tried everything. So everything that I've tried, everything that's benefited me, anything that's benefited anybody else, I have done research beyond research, just probably like yourself. And I want to be able to share that with everybody. So using lots of different things, like you've just said, not everybody's going to be, good with one thing, but if we've got lots of different things. I think what Athletic Minds Foundation, we support by putting all these elements. Tai Chi, breathwork, sound baths, gong baths.
Oh, I love a sound bath.
Yeah, the calibration of the vibrations to be able to kind of deal with the anxiety and stress. All of these elements, which there's so much science in there with a lot of holistic elements that we use. And
I'm just going to stop you there because you said there's so much science behind it, because with a lot of these things, it's considered quackery.
Yeah.
Because they go, there's no science behind it. And I've just written my latest book, which is The Wellness Way, A Beginner's Guide to Your Natural Health Systems. And when I was researching it, I can't remember which body it was, but it's on Wikipedia, I think.
All right.
They say that there is no evidence whatsoever for anything, any modality with energy meridians in the body, and including acupuncture. All right, try telling 1 billion Chinese that, because, they almost set the science, they have set the science up so that if you can't prove it scientifically, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think it's just where you're looking, isn't it? I think, there's an argument to everything, and it's where you're looking. And if you want to find something you're looking for so bad, you will find it. And I think for me is that there is a lot of papers out there. There's a lot of studies, and I know a hell of a lot of people that have benefited from so many things. I've met so many amazing people in my life, and I've learned from them, and I've brought that practice into the charity. That I see the charity as a gateway for people to be able to kind of learn about themselves, learn about actually yoga, yoga, exercise, the most common thing that is out there that can raise your endorphin. People just don't do it. Eating healthy, from myself, from a poor background, with having, fish that's not even fish, and sausages that aren't even sausages, and all of these unhealthy things, but actually, eating kind of understanding food, understanding your gut, understanding your brain, understanding your body, understand what we're putting in there. I think, for me, somebody could have told me, you've got to do this or do that or do that. But actually, I had to learn myself. I learned. And if you're educated enough to know, or if the information's there, or if you're interested, all you've got to do is connect that to you, to your life, and you're going to know. You're going to want to know, no matter what. And I think if you can connect, if that's sound, yoga, food, exercise, therapy, whatever that might look like, one of them elements, it's a gateway. We've got a charity. It's a gateway to any of that. Oh, actually, I like that. I can try that. You're not just sat there talking about something. You're actually going to come in and try something.
I find we're going to come on to nutrition next, because that's the second part of your program. But I found for me that I felt really ill when I was eating the toxins of the food.
Yeah.
And I was really struggling. And I started my journey with diet and nutrition. And I'd rather eat less and eat good quality. So I intermittent fast.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford to eat 3 organic meals a day and organic snacks. So, I have 1, maybe 2 meals a day tops. I don't eat a huge amount, but I make sure that it is completely nutritious and that my gut, we know the connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve. If your gut's happy, your brain's happy. And that's really, really key, isn't it? Just getting in the fermented foods.
It is. And again, it's about educating folk, because if you say certain trigger words, that people don't really understand, I think we're bringing it in on a very basic level. So we're teaching you very basic things about the body and brain that are not going to overwhelm, because remember, we're looking at a charity. People are coming for free. They're wanting these services. They can't get on a waiting list at the NHS. So bringing them in on a basic level to get the basics in regards to food and nutrition without overwhelming, because as soon as you start talking about the vagus nerve and what is that, and as soon as you start talking about fermented food, and as soon as you start talking about things that we've lost them straight away. So
have you really? Because I wrote my book to be really simple, a beginner's guide, and yet I mentioned all of those. But I don't. Oh gosh, maybe they don't know yet.
But it's not. But I mean, I'm talking from a lifetime that I've had, and I think what we are is in regards to, we have steps that, because it's an 8-week program.
Yeah.
So bringing in on a very basic level, and actually once you start to learn about yourselves, for me, it was, I didn't know about the alcohol, I didn't know about the bread, I didn't know about all this until I stopped it. I stopped red meat. I didn't mention that. I stopped red meat, I stopped pork. I did a lot of research in regards to what I put into the animals, what I actually put into them animals, and are we eating that, and how do we feel? Pork, don't get me started, and you can have nightmares and you're thinking, oh, I'm eating that. So actually, when I stopped drinking, the drugs, the antidepressants, all of these things I stopped that as well. The smoking, I smoked like 40 cigarettes a day. I did all of these elements, but meat, red meat and pork, I gave that up. I went to organic. I started to look into that kind of stuff, and it's until you stop, and then you might have a little bit of bread, or you might have something, and you can feel the difference within your body then. And that's how I started to go, wow, I've been doing this from day dot, eating this stuff and putting it in my body. And actually, I didn't realise, it's like a bear with a sore foot. It's like the alcohol. It's just normal. It's like trauma. It's just normal.
Well, I have to say, you were just about to say until you stop, and then you kind of go, oh my God, I feel so much better. I did that, but I was so stressed at never being able to go out or eat in a restaurant, and people stopped inviting me even on Christmas Day to have dinner with them. I can't feed you, or I'll give you a bit of salmon. No, it's the most toxic food on the planet. Not eating that shit. And so I actually reprogrammed my brain to say that if I wanted to eat a bit of crap, it was okay, and it wouldn't hurt me. And it doesn't. Before, if I ate a bit of crap, I vomit, red marks everywhere, migraines, and now I can do it, and it's absolutely fine. So, you talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza, and all of that is rewiring.
I'm with you. And that's exactly how I changed my rewired, reprogrammed. I kind of say that with everything that we've done within it. That's what the 8-week program is there to kind of reprogram the way you think, to understand things and rewire. And I'm with you as well. I 5 years I wouldn't touch anything, meat, pork, and even to a point of if I was starving, I was hungry as hell, and I was like, no, I can't eat that because it's got a little bit of ham in it or anything.
But the stress that's having on your body,
but just recently, I ordered a takeaway, and it was a wrong takeaway. It came and it had things that, it had red meat in it. And I'd made this, because this is what I want to kind of put out there as well. We can put restrictions and labels on ourselves and all of this pressure. And I did it on a 5-year talk I was doing. And actually, it's not going to kill me. If I am hungry and it's come, and I remember eating this takeaway and that doesn't taste like chicken, and and actually I was like, give myself a break, give myself a break. It's not something I choose to do. And now I think over the last year I've ordered 2. I live near a farm shop, so grass-fed beef. I know where it comes from. You've
seen it in the field.
But that's what the farmer said. That's what the guy who sold it to me when I was trying to go, are you sure? Well, it's just round there if you want to have a look. Anyway, but my point of being, I still choose not to eat meat on a daily occasion. But if I choose to, or there's a certain situation, I'm not going to limit myself to say, I can't do that, or I'm a failure. because that's what I would do. I would put myself into a
Yeah.
box that I wouldn't able to get out of, and I'd restrict that. And actually, that was it wasn't helping me. I'd proved a point that I could stop all of this, and I was doing it for the benefits of health.
I
Actually,
don't eat meat through choice. I might have a slice of chicken on Christmas Day, but that's kind of
Yeah.
it. But I have bone broth in my diet because
Yeah, I've
I
heard it's
want
really
the
good.
nutrients of the
Yeah.
organic carcasses. I had leaky gut, and when you have leaky gut, you feel shit. I mean, it's that simple. So that was my healing mechanism, my tool for me on that. So we've got the therapy, we've got the nutrition, and we've got the educational aspect. But you've taken this charity to kind of great heights. You've worked with some really big names, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah,
And we're almost out of time,
Yeah.
and we're on our second
Yeah.
episode.
Let's just run through it.
Tell
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
who you've worked with.
So yeah, I within 6 months of kind of changing my life, I was working with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I worked for Arnold Schwarzenegger in the UK. It was a mentor. I met him in Wales and at an event. And yeah, short story, I was working with him. I was in Barcelona as part of his entourage and shadowing him and the Arnold Sports Festival and how they worked to bring that to the UK, and quickly became the head of sport and head of relations.
And that's a big conference, isn't it?
It's a big sporting festival. So yeah, bringing all the best sports from all over the world together under one roof over a weekend. So yeah, I had the job and brought that to the UK, a sellout UK event.
It's about
in Birmingham.
60,000 people,
60,000
isn't it?
people, yeah, with some of the best sport. And yeah, I had the privilege of bringing that and
What year
being a
was
part
that?
of that. It was 2021.
Bloody hell,
I know,
Fry.
yeah. I've done some amazing things. I've worked at events with Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson. I have worked with, the likes of Wim Hof. I've done some amazing things with some amazing people and learned so much. Yeah.
This is it. I mean, that's why I keep writing books, because the knowledge, when you go
Yeah.
on these journeys, the knowledge when you work with extraordinary people, you just want to share it with the world, don't you? And you just go, if everybody knew this.
If you don't, well, the thing is, I think my philosophy, and it's only where, like, how have you got to where have you got? How have you built the retreats? How have you built the charity? How have you worked for Arnold? And it's not because I was educated as a kid, and it's because I want it, and it's because I figure out, right, okay, I'm never going to learn this stuff in an amount of time, but someone's been doing it, running a sport for 20, 30 years, and knows everything about it. Running a charity, a therapist that has been a therapist for 30 years, a nutritionist has been a nutritionist for 10 years. But if I bring all of them together and I can learn off them and get all of that content and just take them golden nuggets that you're being taught and put all of that together, that's the only reason I'm a visionary that put all of these things together to help others, because I want to help as many people as I possibly could. And I know that me personally can't do that just from there, but if I build something and put all of these things together, all these amazing people, all this amazing knowledge under one roof that can project that out to the world, that's what I do. That's my power.
Oh my God, it's one hell of a power.
Yeah.
It's one hell of a power. I can't thank you enough for staying on and getting a second episode in today, because this is such an inspiring story. And after last week's episode, which was so heart-wrenching, to actually see where this has brought you. Manuel, can you just tell everybody, we're going to put it in the show notes, but can you just tell everybody where they can contact you?
My page, Instagram, is Manwellness. Put the name and the wellness together, and there we go, Man Wellness. And we've got the charity, which is the Athletic Minds Foundation, which is a charity that helps everybody that needs that help. So if you look on social media or on the internet, you will find Athletic Minds Foundation. And then obviously we have Soha Retreats, which is a global retreat that I run around the world with many celebrities and experiences of wellness as well. So you can catch.
They're not cheap though.
They're not cheap, but they're an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And if you want, see how I see it. That's an experience, a global experience to have a holiday around. But it's the same as a package holiday. If you was to book an all-inclusive 5-star holiday,
Yes.
or if you was to book the only difference is we offer an all-inclusive holiday with yoga, with breath work, with sound bath, with an experience to meet your idol who you might want to learn something off, just like I've done all my life. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I want to go on a retreat with him, or Wim Hof, I want to learn from the best, and I want to spend that time. I don't think there can be a price sometimes on that.
No.
And if you want help and support in any way, the charity is completely free to anybody that needs it. So the experience of bringing someone like Wim Hof or Robbie Fowler or anything, that unfortunately these people don't do it for free.
No, and everything is an exchange of energy, and money is
exactly.
energy. And I always feel really bad about the fact that I have to charge for my books and my meditation album and all of this. But if I don't, I can't continue to get the work out. It's that simple.
And I think it's about investing in yourself. A retreat is somebody that's going to go on holiday. It's not where I've done many retreats where it's transformational and where we work on that. I'm trying to get out of that risk element for people, taking them away to fix them, to help them. That's what I created the charity for. I want to create an alternative to a holiday, that people going on holiday and then they can't wait to go on a holiday. They save all their money up to go on holiday, and then they need another holiday. And actually, the difference is we're looking at a wellness experience for parents, and that's just the difference. So it's investing in yourself to a normal package holidays to go on a Soha retreat.
Absolutely, self-care is healthcare.
Yeah.
And just as we finish, I'm going to say, for the end of the show, the doctor of your future is you. Manuel, thank you so much for doing another episode. That has been an extraordinary story.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.